All right, what are the top legal questions that I hear as a healthcare attorney? I'm going to get it to you in this video because we're back again with an office hours. I'm healthcare attorney David Holt, or DJ. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm just going to walk you through three big things in this video. One, the best entity. We're just going to break it down. We're not going to go through every entity choice. Two, the main legal paperwork that a healthcare business owner is always asking about. And then the ever elusive or confusing S-Corp election that always seems to be what is being recommended. So let's take it one at a time. First off, let's talk a little bit more about what I'm doing as a healthcare attorney. We are on a mission to make an impact on the broken US healthcare system. I don't think it's any secret that the US healthcare system is broken. Um, my focus is on empowering small healthcare provider business owners get into the system because I believe they make the most impact. And our goal is to serve 1,000 healthcare providers by 2027. And we're already halfway there. Might need to increase that goal once we hit it. So, crucial first step. So, choosing the right legal entity. I think this is just, it's over lawyered, it's over complicated, it's made to be more of an issue than it needs to be, I think. At the end of the day, if you look at statistics in the state of Minnesota, the most frequently filed entity is going to be the LLC or PLLC. And so that says something. I don't think that people are just, randomly gravitating towards that, or the lawyers that they might be working with are actually doing that, or the services that file the entities are just randomly picking LLCs. It's because they are usually the best choice. There are all sorts of other entity choices: sole proprietorship, limited liability partnership, corporation, all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, for our clients, I'm just speaking from experience, not based on your individual fact situation. I would say 90 to 95% of them over the past 10 years, which is hundreds of entity filings in Minnesota, have been LLCs, or more specifically, a professional limited liability company. Its counterpart, counterpart, sorry, in California would be the professional corporation, so PC. California does not allow LLCs to be owned by professionals, so just small distinction there. So what does that mean in terms of when you're approaching an attorney, legal, tax costs, licensing, all of that? An LLC can quite simply be owned by as many owners as you would really like, but often I see it just as a single member LLC. It's what I am right now, Holt Law LLC. Single owner is myself, but we still have the entity and the protection around the entity, so that if I were to be sued for things that I did as a lawyer, it would hit the entity, not me personally. And so that's why we set up these entities. Pretty simple. In Minnesota, we've gone one step further and made this more complicated, I think, than it really needs to be. And most states have followed suit, which is, what's the difference between a professional and a regular entity, right? Unnecessarily confusing. The conservative legal approach would be that if you are a licensed professional that falls into one of the professional firms categories, then you need to make a professional firm's election. And so what that means is you can have the P in front of the LLC, or like Holt Law LLC, I didn't like the ring of the P. I've still made the professional firm election, which means that after I filed my entity and checked the little box for the professional firm, I then separately sent a letter to the lawyers board, just making that and enabling that professional firm election. And so it would be the same for each licensed professional, medical doctor, nurse, what have you. Okay. So a PLLC and an LLC might be the same thing, but just named slightly differently. Minnesota has created the option to have the P there. It's more important whether you click the box and qualify as a professional firm. Why this is really high level. The reason is that we're trying to keep individuals who are not licensed professionals from owning medical practices or medical businesses, except for in certain limited situations. So that's why it's there. Okay, moving on. So essential legal paperwork. So point one we went through, Probably LLC is going to be the answer for you, specifically a professional limited liability company in Minnesota and a professional corporation in California, or the respective equivalent of that in each state. Okay, essential legal paperwork for a healthcare business. So the biggest things you need if you're just watching a quick LinkedIn video and you're just trying to pull this up from scratch is going to be legal documents between you, the business, and your patient. So patient intake forms. This is going to set the boundaries between who you are as the business, what you're going to do, costs, and ultimately limit your liability. In a good intake forms, there is informed consent, meaning that you let a patient know of all the things that could go wrong with a particular procedure or service, outline that, and then inform them that, hey, even if that happens, this is a known risk and I'm not going to be liable as the licensed professional. So patient intake forms, if for some reason you told me I could only have one set of legal documents and I, for some reason, couldn't do any of the other ones, I would only pick as a healthcare business the patient legal intake forms, period. But that's a silly hypothetical, and I would much rather have the other things I'm going to talk about. The next one would be the HIPAA and State Privacy Act compliance documents. So commonly in the healthcare industry, we just think of this and we group it all together as the notice of privacy practices in HIPAA consent form. It's kind of confusing, but federal law, HIPAA, is read in tangent with any state health Records Act rule. So in Minnesota, for example, we have the Minnesota Health Records Act. It's read in conjunction and alongside federal law. And to the extent that it's more strict than HIPAA or federal law, those rules are the way of the land. So we need a document that explains to the patient, listen, notice of privacy practices. Here's all the things that we're going to do with your data or we can't do, or the exceptions. I'm going to outline them and I'm going to have you sign that and understand that. Fun fact, that would be a great document to put in things that are related to how you communicate with the client about upcoming appointments. Maybe you want to do a little bit of marketing of new services. This would be a great spot to put that and outline that and tell them about what you're going to be doing with their data. So this doesn't just need to be a federal template that is never reviewed. It can actually be a pretty robust document. But in any case, we need something. Next one, staff agreements. So lots of different types of staff. I've talked about at the previous office hours that I'm a very big fan of virtual assistants. They're not my employees. They're technically not my contractors. It's through a staffing agency. Love them. Big fan. Your agreement in that situation would just be with the staffing agency. You actually don't have an individual agreement with each of your virtual assistants. But outside of that, if we're thinking about growth, there ultimately has to be more than just you running the business and doing things. And so we're talking about employment agreements, independent contractor agreements. Those need to be in compliance with local and federal rules and sound and ready to go for us to layer on more staff. Okay. Next legal documents are going to be all the internal policies and procedures in a medical clinic, medical spa, any sort of medical practice. This is going to be the documents that talk about, here's how we do the procedures every single time, right? First, we wash our hands, then we go and grab the vial, then we put it in, and we always do it this way. And that way we have a protocol and something we can point to as this is the way that we always do it, new staff, and this is the way we're going to do it. And when new patient comes in, we follow that. This is especially important when we're delegating any of our services as a licensed professional down to non-licensed or individuals who are licensed but not in our category. So like a medical doctor down to a nurse. Very similar for lawyers as well. But internal policies and procedures are going to be all of the, I use the term sometimes standard operating protocols, but it's how everything is supposed to work internally, how we handle every situation, and in medical practices, how we do the medical thing every single time. Another example, not just on procedures, is for medical practices, you might have prescriptions that are being refilled or things that are just common quasi-medical decisions. And we just say, record retention is another one that comes to mind. we need to say how we're going to handle that every single time so that other staff know what's going on. And of course, we're writing all of those in compliance with the current law. Other healthcare practice forms, that's going to be specific based on the procedures, and or if we're dealing with let's just say, medication management or something a little more specific, then maybe we're going to have some healthcare practice forms that are specific to that. I'm specifically thinking about some of the medical spa clients and some of their more clinical um, delegation agreements and medical director type agreements. Okay, let's move on finally and quickly to the S-Corp election. S-Corp, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. Oh, that's what my CPA said. Everyone's supposed to be an S-Corp. Maybe, again, similar to the LLC, you do see most frequently the S-Corp election. A lot of my clients do it. I generally think it is the best decision, but I'm not giving you advice in your individual factual situation. This is not legal advice, but S-Corp is usually the right way to go. In LLC, or professional corporation in California with the S corp election is a pretty good 1-2 punch. So the S corp, interesting and rather oddly named, is not its own legal entity. It's not like Holt Law S corp. It's a tax election. So keep that in mind. For example, I am Holt Law LLC up in Minnesota, and I am taxed as an S corp. I'm Holt Law PC down in California, but um, I'm not Holt Law, S corp or Holt Law Corp, and then I did something with the S. I'm actually an LLC that made the S corp election, and so the reason that the S corp is very popular is because we're trying to pay the bare legal minimum in taxes, right? You don't want to overpay the government. That's your money that you work for. So an S corp allows, high level, just for you to take a reasonable salary, and then profits and distributions after that salary would be taxed at a lower rate. What CPAs don't generally tell you is that when you do an S corp election, you're probably going to be paying your CPA firm or accountant more to do the payroll and to file the necessary reporting for that over the course of a year. Even though as a net amount, you're going to save that. I just want to make sure that you're aware that also your CPA is, going to net be charging you more over the year. So just talk to your CPA. I'm not a tax professional. I can't give tax advice. Talk to an accountant on that. But that's usually what's going on with the S corp election. Hold on. The importance of sound legal advice. So, gosh, it's like most other things in this world, right? Investments, small investments up front generally can save a lot on the back end. It's the same in maintaining your health and all sorts of other things. But I have tried my entire career, and I continue to do so, to create affordable and accessible legal advice. Now, my hourly rate has gotten above $1,000 an hour because that's not the way I want to be engaged. Rather, I've created numerous flat fee packages, and we don't compete on price, but I can see that I am certainly not the most expensive option, not even close for my flat fee packages. I compete on value, strictly value. And what that means for me is I totally recognize good legal advice is expensive. And what I have tried to do is create flat fee packages that are very reasonable and based on value and can enable an entrepreneur to get in, be successful as a healthcare business owner, and start making money because they have the sound legal tools to do so. And I am trying to work on the long-term relationship for when we're adding more staff, adding another location, buying, merging, expanding our services. That's the fun stuff. At the beginning, right, there's the grind. I think a lot of it's back on the business owner, right? Once you got those solid legal tools, it's back onto you for, marketing, providing services, actually finding and hiring that first staff. But my philosophy is I want to have affordable and accessible legal advice, because I think that if I had two big complaints about lawyers, They would be that they're expensive and it's just not accessible to everyone. If you look at my clients, just look at Google reviews. I think you'll notice a trend that I work with a lot of individuals that traditionally have been underserved by attorneys, and I can do a whole nother video on why that is. So anyway, focus on value more than price and tailored legal startup packages. Um, I think the key takeaway here is that I don't want access to legal to be a barrier to starting a healthcare business, right? If price was absolutely the barrier, right? Something that couldn't be on a credit card. Even as a fallback, I am one of the few attorneys that I am aware of, um, based on attorneys that I've spoken with, hundreds, in fact, probably thousands at this point over the last 10 years, comparing notes and how we run our practices and all that, that has a design your own legal representation. And in there, I say, listen, if finances and price is a barrier, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your life circumstances, and I will absolutely take that into consideration to make this um, affordable and accessible to you. What I do ask is once you get up and you're successful, I'm going to make that ask for your business again. So that's really my approach there. Um, Another key takeaway is just to protect your healthcare business and use the legal tools at the beginning to have that nice foundation. It's like the nice foundation in a well-built house, not this like crumbling, cracking thing that we have to go and repair later, and it's super expensive to do, and you got to like lift the house. It's just like not feasible. And so investing in that sound legal advice early, I think, can have a profound impact long term. So if you're interested in any of this, you're looking for advice, either in Minnesota, California, reach out. I'm more than happy to help. And